attacks the human respiratory system. This is why you must keep guarding against contact with respiratory droplets. All right. So I see our YouTube viewers joining us. So good morning, everybody.
Good morning and welcome to our YouTube viewers. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to be live in less than about 30 seconds.
All right. By isolating yourself.
Yes, indeed.
It is important to obey the stay-at-home order.
Today's almost going to sound like Tech Friday, actually. We're talking financial inclusion.
Unconfirmed news about COVID-19 will do more damage than good. Together as one, we will kick out coronavirus. This message is from Stanbic IBTC.
Business trends beyond the headlines. Business Express on Smooth 98.1 in association with Stanbic IBTC. Stanbic IBTC. It can be.
Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. You're most welcome to today's edition of Business Express 981. It's now 6:31 a.m. Thursday, 29th of July, 2021. I have Rotus. Morning, Rotus. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing fine. Thanks. Good morning to all our viewers, our listeners, and of course, our special guests from Stanbic.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rotus. Talking about our special guests, we have Babatunde Ogunleye, Equity Research Analyst West Africa at Stanbic IBTC. Good morning, Babatunde, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Good morning, Ayo, and good morning, Rotus. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Right, if you'd like to join the conversation, as always, we welcome your comments and contributions. You can do so by heading on to our YouTube channel. We're streaming live on YouTube, or you could send us a WhatsApp message. WhatsApp messages only go to this number, 0809 444 0981. Rotus, we're going to be looking at improving Nigeria's financial inclusion, and I'm really glad that Stanbic IBTC, represented by Babatunde Ogunleye, is here to discuss that with us. Please take us through this.
Yes, indeed. Babatunde, again, as Ayo has said, research analyst for West Africa, covers the banking sector. Also, does a lot of research on financial inclusion. Babatunde, I wanted to get your take on the central bank's updated framework for solving financial inclusion. I wonder if you could take us through the 3 key licenses for financial inclusion in Nigeria, with what this framework hopes to achieve.
Okay, so earlier in 2015-2016, so the CBN has a target of meeting financial inclusion of 80% by 2020. However, they were not able to meet the target by 2020, but now the target has been moved to 95% by 2024. So basically, like you mentioned, there are three basic licenses when it comes to financial inclusion. So we have the mobile money license, we have the super agent license, and we have the PSB license, that's the payment service bank. So what differentiates in terms of the mobile money license is basically to drive financial inclusion. And because Nigeria is a bank-led model, so the CBN, based on the updated mobile money license that was sent out, they said Nigeria is still going to remain a bank-led model. And due to that, we have the banks spearheading the mobile money space. So it's more of a diversion between banks and non-banks, basically. So the banks and the non-banks, a corporate entity aside the telco, can have a license for the mobile money. And then for the super agents is just basically the monitoring of agents' activities. For super agents, MTN has a super agent license. And then for the PSB is just basically to drive financial inclusion. And then the PSB operators are required to go to remote areas and serve the unbanked. And then they are supposed to have 25% of their touch points in these local regions. So for bringing everything together, so like only three players have been licensed. We have 2 telcos, that's Nine Mobile and then Glo, and then OPSB, a subsidiary of Unified Payments when it comes to PSB. So the PSB basically grants the telcos the ability to be able to participate in to be able to drive financial inclusion, because the license is seen in terms of similarities with the MMO license. For the MMOs, they cannot hold funds. They have to partner with a settlement bank for them to be able to hold funds. But for the PSB license, you can definitely hold fund with the PSB license, basically. But for both license, you can't offer loan products, basically.
It's very interesting how it's been structured. So Nigeria is a bank-led system. Can you give examples of any telco-led nations on the African continent?
Yeah, so Safaricom is a quick example, and Kenya is a quick example. And then what has made Kenya grow when it comes to mobile money inclusion is Safaricom. So Safaricom has been able to spearhead the mobile money development space in that region. And then one of those things was the fact that Kenya basically operates a telco-led model. And then through that telco-led model, although Safaricom basically dominates the market in Kenya, but with that, they've been able to accelerate financial inclusion. I think Kenya financial inclusion is around 81% when it comes to like financially included people within that particular region. And then also just speaking in terms of the West African space, it's Ghana. So initially when Ghana started with a bank-led license, just similar to what Nigeria did, but it didn't work out for them. They had to switch to a mobile money, to a telco-led license, and which is why you see the likes of the MTN Momo as beginning prominence in the region in Kenya, basically. So like those are just those quick two examples, just because of time.
Yep. Whenever you talk about African nations that are forward-thinking and advancing, you always, I don't know, South Africa, Kenya, Ghana always seem to pop up in the conversation. Yeah. Babatunde, can both models, the bank-led model for financial inclusion and the telco-led model for financial inclusion, can they work in tandem, do you think? Or is what is going on in Nigeria just a front for protecting the banks from competition?
So to an extent, like I wouldn't, because based on what we've seen so far, in regions where you have the bank-led model, that the bank-led model has been operational, you have low telco penetration. And the regions where you have like high telcos driving financial inclusion in those regions, you have a high banking penetration, sorry. And then in those regions where you have banks driving, you have low penetration. So for instance, like Nigerian financial exclusion rate is 36%. And then if you compare that to Kenya, Kenya is around 11%. Kenya basically operates a telecom-led model, and Nigeria operates a bank-led model. So if you try to compare the two together, you see that like there's a disparity. So the telcos basically have the leverage to be able to accelerate financial inclusion based on their subscriber base, basically compared to a bank. Yeah, even though we've seen banks spearheading development in that space, the likes of FBN and Access and UBA as well, they'll be trying to grow their agency landscape. But however, like comparison to telco, you can't, like the margin is very, very wide.
Thank you for mentioning that, because that's my next question. The agency banking model, what would, you mentioned some banks there, what would need to happen for that to scale appropriately and make more inroads in terms of financial inclusion?
So for the agency banking model, basically like one of the key things that is very, very important is the adoption of the mobile wallet. So the way this works is that, for instance, you can be able to carry out transactions, like basically those transactions sit on your phone. So you can be able to use your phone to be able to facilitate those transactions when it comes to like, if you're using like an adoption of a mobile wallet. So basically you don't necessarily have to have a proper bank account for you to be able to use a mobile wallet. But however, in Nigeria, the case is different. The agency banking, the customer's bank account need to be linked to their every transaction. So that is one of those key things that needs to be properly addressed. And also, it's speaking in terms of the identification system. The identification system also needs to be addressed. So you have BVN, you have NIN, like you just have everywhere. And then there was even a particular time that fintech are also able to access, because for the fintech, them to be able to use BVN is sort of expensive for them, and which is why though we've seen regulation trying to scale up the NIM identity system. So with that, I think with that NIM identity system to an extent, we should be able to know the number of people, and then we should be able to have identity of those people as well. And also another thing is them being able to offer a wide range of services. So currently, like the agent transaction is just limited to cash in, cash out, and transfers. So You need to be able to have a situation whereby they are able to offer loan products, and even aside offering a loan product, they are also able to carry out insurance services and other value-added services that financial institution basically offers, basically for the branch model. And also in the rural regions too as well, one of the key important things is you need an efficient technology in those regions, because without which you would, if you are really keen and serious about financial inclusion, there should be some rate of penetration when it comes to access to electricity and access to basic infrastructure and amenities and the likes, basically.
Infrastructure. Thank you, Babatunde. Infrastructure always comes up. I noticed, I want to get to, anyway, if I get to this next, because you mentioned loan services, insurance, very vital for scaling agency services with banks. I think I know the answer to this next question, but just to throw it to you, for our listeners, clear it up. Who can best expand financial inclusion between fintechs, between telcos, between banks?
Okay, so let me just create a scenario here. So NIMS data is showing that roughly 48 million Nigerians have PVN. That's the percentage, and that's the bank population. So if you are going to compare that with EFINA 106 million adult population in Nigeria, that's around 46% penetration rate. And then if you look at the telcos have over 187 mobile subscribers. They have the network, they have the ability to be able to scale financial services they have the ability to be able to scale financial inclusion within different regions. And then if you compare those two data, like if you look at the NIMS data, if you look at what the telco have in terms of their subscriber base, that sort of shows you that the telcos have more edge to be able to accelerate financial inclusion when it comes compared to like what you will see in a bank-led model, for instance, like the likes of though we have agency banking. We have the agency banking growth. For instance, SANEF recorded 750 agents. They have over like 750 agents. But compared to the number of mobile subscribers, that is still not, there's a wide gap, basically. So like the telcos basically have an advantage to be able to accelerate financial inclusion, basically.
Seems pretty obvious. It seems pretty obvious. Can you quick summarize the I think you may have mentioned this earlier in the first question, but the updated mobile money and payment service regulations in about 3 minutes, if you can. So we're almost out of time.
Okay, so for the mobile money, so I'll just state the basic difference between them. So for the mobile money and the PSB, it is only the bank that can offer loan products. The non-bank are not allowed to offer loan products. And for the PSB too as well, they are not also allowed to be able to offer loan products. And for the mobile money, while the non-bank, the customer fund needs to sit in a bank settlement account, in a pool account. But for the PSB can basically have those money sit in their own pool account, so they can invest in those funds. They can also they can invest in government securities and earn additional returns on those funds that they collected in the form of customers' deposits. And then also, if you also look at the mobile money in comparison to the agency and to the super agent. So the super agent as well, the super agent is basically the telcos offering their platform, like they're trying to connect the banks and the fintech to be able to accelerate financial inclusion. So they are just more of offering like a support services for them. So like the banks and the fintech, they are basically leveraging on the telco platform, basically. And then also one other thing is in terms of their capital requirement. So the capital requirement differs. So for the super agent, it's 50 million, and then you have to have a minimum of 50 agents. And then for the mobile money, it's 2 billion. And then for the PSB, it's 5 billion when it comes to capital requirement, basically.
Fantastic. Babatunde Ogunleye, Research Analyst West Africa, Stanbic IBTC. Thank you for this in-depth discussion on financial inclusion. But I think just less than a minute, 30 seconds.
All right, just before you go,
progressing in this space.
Rotus.
We have some comments.
Yeah, just to we have 1 or 2 comments just to get through.
Okay.
Says, one thing we don't usually put into consideration in this financial inclusion is that banks in Nigeria will always want to lead the model because they have the financial muscle and political capital to battle the telcos, compared to other countries like Kenya and Ghana, where their telcos are bigger than their banks. Various regulators still see telcos as foreign companies. And then, Ladele Johnson is asking a question that came up the last time we had this conversation. Babatunde, he says, I only wonder why both the banks and telcos can't work together.
So if you could recall, there was an issue recently that broke out that had to do with the USSD payment fee. Mm-hmm. So the telcos were basically, the banks were saying that they cannot charge, probably what they do before is probably like a profit sharing model. However, the telcos sort of increased the charge at which they want to charge. So they wanted more of a model because from NCC increased the pricing at which they could charge per unit. So they also brought that increased pricing to the banks. And there was a dispute between the banks and the telcos that they had to suspend payment for a while. And then, there was even a time that they said that they are owing them accumulated debt too as well. So if you put all of those together, and then within recent 6 naira and 98 kobo that we have to pay for every USSD transaction. Right. So you put those things together, those sort of things are just what is going to hinder and probably create a threat to financial inclusion, because really, when it comes to financial inclusion, we should be looking at the people we are seeking to include, to be able to bring on board for them to be able to carry out these transactions. But those people are in the extreme regions. They're in the regions where internet penetration is low. For them to be able to come on board and to be able to use, and for them to be able to come on board and to be able to have access to financial services, it is important that both the telcos and the banks, they need to work together, they need to work hand in hand, without which we are sort of going to be having the same issues almost every time, basically. So that partnership is important.
All right, excellent. Thank you for throwing more light on that, Babatunde. And we're out of time. Right. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Rotus. And thank you, a special thanks to our guest, Babatunde Ogunleye, Equity Research Analyst West Africa for Stanbic IBTC. We have to go now, and then we continue the conversation tomorrow. It will be the Tech Friday edition of Business Express 981. Well, on today's show, we'll be bringing you today's edition of Freshly Pressed 981 at 7:30. Immediately after that, at 8:10 a.m., we bring you today's edition of Lagos Talks 981. We open the phone line so you can get to respond to any of the headline stories. And then at 9 o'clock, we have the Grapevine 981 and special guest Esther Benyogo will be joining me then. Stay tuned here on Smooth 98.1.
Beyond the headlines.
We had a substantial amount of capital available to invest.
Business Express on Smooth 98.
Thank you very much.